All right, our last sections here in Chapter 9 will be 9.5 and 9.6, which will be graphing inequalities, and we'll eventually be graphing systems of inequalities, which will be 9.6, I believe. But today for 9.5, we're just doing graphing a single inequality. We're gonna bring back y equals mx plus b for graphing. Okay, and instead of an equal sign, we'll have an inequality, but the rules are still the same for y equals mx plus b, where y is the slope. Okay, the slope, which is also written as rise over run, because we're going to have our slope, our m, we're going to write it as a fraction, and depending on what it is, we're going to rise a certain amount, and we're going to run a certain amount. Okay, and then we have our b, which is where we start. The b is where we begin, and the b is known as the y-intercept, which is going to be where on the y-axis we begin, and then we do our rise over run from that starting spot. So y equals mx plus b. If you look at number 2, it's written out in y equals mx plus b form. Here's our m, and here is our b. Okay, we'll deal with the inequalities after we just figure out how we get our points. Okay, so let's just get our 2 points to draw our line, but we're not going to draw the line to start. You'll notice we have a little bit of, okay, and actually you're going to want to add these in on your sheet. Use black here. Okay, add in these lines, the or equal to's. Okay, and then we're just going to add a line here and a line here. If you need to pause and fill those in, go ahead and do that now. Okay, back to our color. I think I was using red. All right, so we're going to do slope, y-intercept. So look at number 2, and I like to start with the y-intercept because that's where we begin. The b is always at the end here. It's where we begin. We're going to begin with positive 1. It's the y-intercept, so it goes on the y-axis. So where's 1 on the y-axis? Boom. There's our first dot. First dot for our line. Next, our slope is right here. If it's not written as a fraction, write it as a fraction. So the slope is 2, so I'm going to write it as 2 over 1. I write it as a fraction because I need to do rise over run. So I'm going to rise 2, and I'm going to run 1, both positive. So where I begin is with that purple dot. I'm going to rise 2, 1, 2, and I'm going to run 1. And there is my other dot. So now I have my 2 dots to draw my line. Okay? There you go. There's my 2 dots to draw the line. From here now, this is where things get a little interesting. I wonder, I think I can make lines, dotted lines after I draw them, but we'll get there when we get there. All right, so that's where this little thing, a little guide here, is going to help us with our lines. With inequalities, we have 2 types of line. We have a solid line, which is what we classically used, and we have a dotted line. When we're connecting our 2 dots, we're going to use either a solid or dotted line, depending on if my inequality symbol has one of those or equal to's or not. Okay, so if I look at number 2, which I was doing, the symbol it has the or equal to. So I am going to use a solid line. If it has the little line under it, the or equal to, I'm going to use a solid line when I connect my dots. So I'm going to go over here. If you're using Notability, you know that you can draw a line like this and then hold down your pen. It'll make it a straight line. And then you should be able to move it around. I think I drew it a little too big. Yeah. Let me try that again. Oh no, go back. Here we go. Even though it was all squiggly, and see I just held my pen down, and there you go. Boom, boom. It's a solid line because I had the or equal to. Now, the next part, which is still, again, written over here, is shading. Now, we're going to shade above or below the line that we just drew. To remember above and below, like which section of the graph is above and which section is below, this section in green is below. This section in purple is above, okay? So we have above, below. Okay. We are going to shade one of those sections depending on our symbol, again, back in the beginning of the equation, that guy. Okay. A way to remember it is, you don't have to draw this in, but if I made the line that I drew into like a mountain, shading above would be above the mountain. So see how the purple is above this like fake mountain that I'm drawing? Here's a little cap on the mountain. Okay, above is always above the mountain, and below would be inside the mountain. That's why the green is considered the below, and the purple the above. All right, so I'm going to get rid of these shades for now, because we have to shade one or the other. We can't shade both. We have to choose one or the other. So we have above and below. And it's all dependent on this symbol. Okay, this symbol is a less than symbol. It is less than or equal to. So what does my chart say for less than or equal to? Here's the less thans or less than or equal tos. It says shade below. So all I have to do is follow the directions from this little guide, and you will figure out whether I do solid or dotted line or shade above, shade below. I believe ours was less than, so that's shade below. So I would somehow shade, you could use a highlighter like me, shade below the graph. What this means is that my answer, since it's an inequality, all values that are less than or equal to, right, would answer this question, right? When we talk about inequalities, right? If I have x, oops, I don't want this. If I have x is like less than 5, that's a lot of numbers. There's a lot of numbers that are less than 5. 4 is less than 5, right? So it's 3, 2, 1. There's infinite amount of numbers that are less than 5. I could keep going into the negatives, right? So that's a whole list of numbers, not just one answer. So that means with my shaded area, any dots I put in here, so those points, if I plotted them as x, y's, so like this one would be x is 2, y is 1. If I plug in x is 2 and y is 1 into this original inequality, it would make it a true inequality. So any dots in the shaded area make this inequality true, whereas any dots outside of it would not. These values, if I plotted them as x, y's, would not make it true. So that's what the shading's all about. That's why we're doing this like weird shading. Also, the solid line means that these dots are potential answers, or they are correct answers. If it was a dotted line, which we'll probably do next, then any points that are on the line would not be a part of my solution set. Okay. So let's go down to the next problem, number 4. With number 4, you'll notice it is not in my y equals mx plus b form, so we have to reorder this problem so that this inequality so that it is in y equals mx plus b form. So essentially I'm solving for y. So I'm going to go in here. I am going to start, and we've done problems like this. We've had to do some reordering before. I'm going to take the 7x, right, and subtract 7x both sides. Okay. That's going to cancel it on this side. I'll use a different color here. I'll get in a different area. Okay, so what's left on the left-hand side? We have positive 4y. We just copy over, that's a greater than symbol. And then I have negative 7x and negative 8. Negative 7x minus 8. Okay, now to solve for y, I have to divide by whatever's in front of my y. But we have to remember what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. And we have to divide 4 from all of the terms on the other side. So what am I left with? Cross this off. I have y is greater than, let's see, we have this. I'm just going to copy it down just like that. Negative 7/4 x. My slope is negative 7/4. Slope is okay to be a fraction. Remember, we do rise over run. And then what's left, I have negative 8 divided by 4, which is negative 2. So now, once I've gotten here, I just go back and do what I did for number 2. So I have my equation. I'm going to highlight it in yellow. Okay, so here's my equation. And now I'm going to graph it. I'm going to go back to my graph. Begin with the b, the y-intercept of negative 2. So on the y-axis, I put a dot on the 2. And then my slope, my m, is rise over run. It doesn't, so I have negative 7/4, or depending on my graph, I could do 7 over negative 4. The negative has to go on one of them. I think I'm going to have to choose this one, because if I try to rise negative 7 from this point, use a different color. If I try and go down, rise negative 7 is down, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm off the graph. So I can't do that. So I'm going to need to choose the one where the negative is on the run instead of the rise. So I'm going to rise positive 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and then I'm going to run negative 4. Look, the negatives for run are this way. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's my other dot. And hopefully we remember that whole negative slope, positive slope thing. If I have a negative sloping line, both of these are negatives, right? Negative 7/4 or 7 over negative 4, both negatives, is when I connect these lines, are they going to be negative sloping? Yes. Remember, negative slope, my business is failing, goes down this way. Positive slope, business is doing good, goes up that way. All right, we have a negative sloping line. Now is the line dotted or solid, and do we shade above or below? So this goes back to this symbol. Look at the symbol for my final answer. It is a greater than. All right, it points to the right. It does not have the or equal to thing. So that means when I go back here, let's start with the line. Is it going to be solid or dotted line? I notice that if there's no or equal to, it gives me a dotted line. So when I connect these dots, I'm going to make it a dotted line. Now I think, I'm unsure, I'm pretty sure you can make it a dotted line after you draw it. Let me see. So I'm going to draw my line straight like this. Okay, it's as close as it's going to get. I think if I like tap on it, maybe not. All right, so you might have to get a little creative with this. Oh, I know what I can do. Maybe. It might erase the whole line. Let's see. What could I do here for my dotted line? I don't think it's going to let me. Oh, wait, maybe it will. See, it erases the whole line. Well, if you guys think of better ways to do the dotted line other than this method of just, you know, kind of like just dotting the line, you can do it that way. But for right now, that's my line. It looks awful, but it's a dotted line. Okay, if I have a no or equal to little line underneath my inequality, then it's a dotted line. And now let's go back. Since it's a greater than, it's pointing to the right. Let's go back to my little key. Greater than or equal to will always be shade above. So I'm going to go back. Remember your mountain. I'm shading above the mountain. So my shade is going to go here, above the mountain, above. That's my final answer. This is what I'm looking for, is this graph. The two dots, the dotted line, and the shaded area. That's what you need to do for your final answer. Okay, I'll do one more. Okay, we have to reorder, and then your homework, you'll start on 8 here. I said evens, right? 8, and you'll just keep going. It looks like the first one's in order for you, and then the rest you'll have to reorder. Oops. Okay. So let me do number, where is it? 6. Okay, let's reorder it. First step, let's go ahead and get rid of the x term. Remember, I'm solving for y here. I want it to be y and then the inequality. So it's going to be 3y is less than negative 4x minus 3. And then I'm going to divide by whatever's in front of my y, which is a 3. So I have y less than negative 4/3 x, and negative 3 divided by 3 is negative 1. All right, so there's my, this is what I'm going to graph, and this is going to tell me whether I use a solid or dotted, and shade above, shade below. Begin with B. I'm going to rise, and you can choose the negative or put the negative on bottom, one or the other. You can't add, I can't put in an additional, because if I make this negative, then all of a sudden my slope becomes positive, and I can't do that. I can't change the slope. I could just write it a different way that means the same thing. So I'm going to choose, and for this one it doesn't matter. Neither one goes off the graph, so I can just start with the one I originally had. I'm going to rise negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to run positive 3. 1, 2, 3. There's my other dot. Don't leave these loopies here. If you need to use the loops, feel free, but you should erase those. It's a negative slope. I think I'm going to have a negative sloping line. Look back now. It's all about the symbol. It's all about this. Okay, since it is just a less than and not less than or equal to, it's going to be a dotted line. So I'm gonna dot it. Okay, dotted line. And since it's a less than, you can go back and refer to that key as you go. I'm going to shade below. So shade inside the mountain, below the mountain. And there you go. Final answer. That's all of it written out. Good luck. You have until 11 p.m. To turn this in. So, sorry, 10 p.m. 10 p.m. You have till 10 p.m. to turn this in. But if you turn it at 11, I don't know. I don't think I'll be that mad. You send me a message in Canvas if you have any questions, and good luck.